I enjoyed the movie so much, and thank you for helping me spend the last few days since I saw it appreciate every little moment I have. Because if there's one thing that movie really does, it's highlight that we have limited time. There's a line that really struck me later on where he says, I can't remember why we wanted to leave this beach. And I'm curious if that and that idea of valuing the time we do have was core to your approach to the whole story and to what you were trying to convey through these characters.
Yeah, I mean, it's that the audience. I think when he says that, I've seen this movie with the audience, and when he says that line, there's this like murmur like moves through everyone, kind of like laughter and sweetness, but kind of like, huh. It's almost like we misunderstood that this was a thriller. Did we, why do we make our life a thriller? Why
Yes,
is there so much fear at
that's
chasing us all the time?
that's
Uh,
exactly. No, I don't want to keep going. Keep saying.
yeah, that's what we're so driven by fear, and I sometimes I just feel like life is so much easier than we make it out to be.
Am I correct then? Because I was walking out of the movie and I started thinking, I was like, we're never getting off this beach, are we?
Nope, not this beach. We're all on this one together. We're stuck here.
I think you're absolutely right. Obviously, I think it's like, wait, is this a thriller? Is life a thriller? Like, how does this work? What are we running from? Like, it's all going so fast. You set it up like it's one thing, like they're gonna escape. But then you realize in that moment, I think like there truly, in a sense, is none. What happens to these people is they are going through all these stages of grief, basically, and all these
Yeah.
insane life stages. You've got children playing various ages. You've got
Yes.
how do you direct people through childbirth, loss of
Mm,
someone who you deeply
mm,
love, but you also just met, but you've been through it. Like, can you tell us a little bit about working with all these actors through
yeah.
these intense sequences?
Yeah, it was the bait. I think the thing that you're asking me about was a tricky thing in rehearsals that I was trying to make them aware of. I said, this is a very unusual premise because you're not allowed to fixate on any one aspect of it because it's moving too fast for you. So something horrific you're looking at is happening in the midst of something larger that's happening to you that you don't understand. Something that's even larger is happening beyond that. So you do give it some time, but you're distracted. You're still thinking about the other thing. Is you're starting to lose your mind. It's spinning. The plates are spinning too fast for you. So please give me that multiple plate spinning thing in everything that you're encountering. Don't just, it isn't just this person's having a heart attack. That's not the only thing you
Right.
concentrate on. You haven't even recovered from this thing.
Like, you can't, like you just said, you can't just say like, oh, you just lost someone you love, or oh, you're just dealing with a heart attack. You
Mm.
have to say you're dealing with this, but also you're in a body that you're not used to right now.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
or
Yeah.
also you like just matured like 10 years, and your talent, like they seem to find that. So how did you limit the conversation with everybody to just get to these points? Like, how did you hone in?
We often had times of like, hey, don't come up with an answer that's talking down to the audience. And then in general, we don't want to do that, right? In art, you
Right.
don't want to give an answer, just pose the question. So constantly posing questions of, I don't know how to react to this. And what did you just say? Oh, my children look like this. Question, question, question. And that movement between when you're trying to come up with a thought, that's what I want to capture. So just as you're struggling, that struggle is the thing that's so beautiful, that spinning that's going on. So we talked a lot about that in that one shot that we did in the where everyone loses their mind in that and the pregnancy thing, and then that big oneer,
Yes.
and they all kind of go crazy. It was difficult to watch, and we had pitched it to a point at that point with rehearsals that they got this, that it's valid to try. Should we all talk about what's happening? You're not. There's no ground anymore. You've lost your
Right,
ground,
right.
and you're gonna. Your old tools for managing are gone.
You know, you talk about something there about how you interact with the audience. That is something I also really want to ask you about. How do you decide as a writer director
Yeah.
what you will give the audience and when? Because there's some things, in this movie is a great example of it again. You are very careful to not give them certain things until a certain point, but then you give it to them before you give it to some of the characters. And a lot of
Mhm.
things we learn with the characters.
Yeah.
And you know, this is one of the keys to great tension in filmmaking. But I'm curious, like for our audience at least, like how do you make those decisions? Like what do people need to know when? How do you decide to parse it out?
It's a great question. It's I assume it's just a gut feeling about, hey, I'm putting the characters on the margins of the frame and I'm not letting you see what they look like now. But there's something odd about the way they're framed, and they're, in my mind, that's what they're feeling. They're like, I'm feeling odd, like the children feel odd, right? So they know something's wrong. They're kind of, it's on the verge of understanding that they're changing, but they don't have it. And so by marginalizing them, that you get that feeling. Another example would be the same kind of thing. I'm looking at two characters dead on, but I'm marginalizing the two children that have changed, and keeping, I'm teasing you. You're teasing you. I'm by teasing you, I'm telling you they've changed. By not
Right.
showing you, I'm screaming that they've changed. So you're kind of, you're waiting and waiting for me to show you them. So it's a little bit of like, I'm gonna get to this. Hold on one second.
Yes,
Hold on one
yes.
second.
We know that's coming, and we're like,
Yeah.
oh boy. Yes, yes. I mean, and without getting into further reveals, there's even other things. You know, another question is, I know you shot during the pandemic,
Yeah.
right? So that was going on. There's this
Yeah.
feeling in this movie of like, are we going to be able to work together, or are we going to destroy ourselves? How do
Mm.
we handle this? We're trapped in this situation. Was that filtering into your and your team's thought process, or is that just the magic of this is when we're shooting? Like how much do you see this as a metaphor beyond just like life and grief and death, but
Mm.
just kind of things happening in the world, or is that just did that just happen?
I think, it was meant to be. What struck me about it was that it was about our dysfunctional relationship to time, and it so happens that that manifested out in a pandemic,
Yes.
at this moment. But because it's so ubiquitous, our dysfunctional relationship to time, it would have manifested in some other form, not quite as literal as a pandemic, but we're not healthy the way we think about time, and so it's going to keep popping up. It's going to keep popping up. We can't keep going like this. So we're going to keep looking around and going, wow, we're zombies on our phone. We're doing all this stuff. We're not present. And so it felt like something I was struggling with, but obviously it wasn't something that I was only relating to me as a human being. I think many of us are struggling with that moment. So it has all of this. I
I
didn't realize we were going to screen the movie at the end of the pandemic as it's coming out. So
Right. I mean, everybody's trying to take advantage of the moment more now. Honestly, there is this weird chilling thing of like, I might look up from my phone one day and my kids could be 16.
I mean, I was joking about it with someone else, that we look at our phone and it tells you spent 3.5 hours or 4 hours on your phone every day last week. There's no way I spent 4 hours on this phone, but you did. It just went like,
Yes, it's it.
you spent a work week on this phone, just doing this on your phone. What?
Yes. Yes, I know it's chilling and it's powerful in that respect. There's this beautiful also another moment I want to ask about. I know the original the piece it's based on is called Sandcastle. At that moment when towards the end and he just says, "But first, can we build a sandcastle?" There was something about that was really like again it kind of hammered in this idea that like okay yeah struggle we're gonna fight the time but can we just enjoy something here for a second that
Uh,
I don't know how intentional it was, but again,
it
just kind of
was.
like broke right
Yeah.
through.
Yeah,
Um,
that was for me. I tried to, in the cinema language of it all, I was using a lot of this kind of, we were very much inspired by Australian new wave movies like Walkabout and Picnic at Hanging Rock, the way they used zooms and movement of that time period to talk about the essence of nature. And in that scene there, the sandcastle scene, there's all these zooms and movements, and it was our way of saying they're losing their sense of time
oh
in a
yeah,
beautiful
in the
way.
moment, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and I before we wrap, I gotta ask: shot on 35, right?
Yeah, yeah.
In the first minutes was so struck by, I was like, God, this is beautiful in this way that I haven't seen in a while. And I was like, oh, that's what it is. Tell me about the decision to shoot 35 and how you utilized it.
I always want to shoot in 35. It's costlier, it's more dangerous, it's cumbersome. When I was started making The Visit and these movies, I make them for so small that adding that extra money and cumbersomeness and difficulty, and there's so few crew members that even know how to load a camera and how to take care of it, all that stuff. It felt extravagant for the way I was making movies. But this one, I tested everything on that beach, and I don't like the way digital conveys nature. I think that it stops us from feeling something inherent about nature. I don't know what it is. It's an ineffable thing. And film, maybe because it's chemical process and it's organic, it's capturing something, the essence of water and movement and the essence of the beach and all of these sand. I feel what it's like to be out there more through that kind of granular, limited lens. It's allowing me to see what's important. I don't know how else to say it, but that's what I felt.
It's temporal. It is temporal in its nature. So it was a perfect match. So thank you for making that choice and for making the movie and for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, brother. Good talking to you.
Thanks to M. Night for coming on. Thanks so much for listening. And be sure to check out all these kinds of stories and more at nofilmschool.com. Like, rate, subscribe to the podcast. Send us questions at editor@nofilmschool.com for our weekly podcast episode, which is a news roundup and drops every Thursday. These interviews always drop on Tuesdays. Thanks again so much for listening.